TnAmuscle with Big Tom.
Big L, joining you from Evolution Gym.
Well, we interviewed IFBB Pro John Hodgson. I was going to take you through a few of his accomplishments.
Yeah, John's a three-time EFBB British champion. In 1999 he won the overall, earning him his pro card. He's competed in several pro shows, including the Mr. Olympia, where he placed in the top 10, and the 2011 IFBB British Grand Prix, where he placed second to the current Mr. Olympia, Flex Lewis. So check this interview out, you're not going to want to miss this one.
Check it out.
Bye-bye.
Peace. What made you decide to get into bodybuilding?
That's the old cliche, that one, isn't it? It actually boils down to, I'm bringing out my book, shall I say, and it'll all let me explain in the book that it's going to be a while off the book, but it'll all be detailed in there to a degree. I think I've always been sporty. I've always enjoyed, you know, like playing all sports, especially from a young age. Did lots of different sports. Played for Manchester Schoolboys, badminton, football, cricket. You know, lots of. So I've always been a sporty person. But I think where the actual seed was sown was, I always remember it. Actually, it's quite funny. I was looking at a billboard. There's a big, massive picture. We used to hang around on a corner as we did as kids. You know what I mean? And I was about 14. And I remember looking at this billboard of Sylvester Stallone. Wow. And I think he's either Rambo or Rambo 2. And he's holding this machine gun with a bandana and he's absolutely ripped to the bone. And I'm looking at it, and I'll be honest with you, as I'm looking at it, here's this voice goes, look at you gay fucker. And I'm like that. He says, ooh, Stallone, I want to bum you. And I'm like, you what? And so I turn around and there's my mate, boy, thinking, and he's taking the piss out of me, and I went, just shut up, you knob. I said, look at that, that's awesome. I said, how can anybody look like that? I said, it was ridiculous. And to be honest with you, that is probably the most poignant moment that I can relate to, even though I used to buy the magazines. And I looked at that and it was like, I was brought up with the movies of Rambo and Rocky and, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger coming through, all them, but it was like, wow. I'm, you know, reading the magazines by Bodybuilding Monthly, it was Gary Stridham on the front cover and that, and the likes, and it was like, that's incredible. Even though I didn't know at the time that I wanted to do that, that's when I think the seed was sown, and subconsciously it was already, it emanates from that point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You joined the RAF and it wasn't for you,
No.
or you couldn't become a PTI.
Yeah.
Then you moved to Spain. Why did you move to Spain, and what was your experience like?
Well, I went to Spain because I just totally had enough of being in Britain. I just thought what I was doing over there was just mundane. I wasn't really going anywhere. I was treading water. I was just living the normal life that the everyday person, you know, was living. So for me, I realised this ain't John Hodgson, this ain't what I'm about. There's more to me than this. And so I went out to Spain to do a similar sales role. I was selling timeshare at the time, but I was actually working not on the streets but on the resort. So while I was out there, I then found this gym called Nuevo Estilo. I used to live on the Costa del Sol, and Nuevo Estilo was in Fuengirola, the town centre. And so I actually started and joined there in about April 1991. And then with the view to sort of like keep up with it, because I used to train sporadically, but I was just doing nothing back home. You know, even though when I was in the Air Force, I used to train religiously in a group. When I left that, I was just doing nothing with myself. It was like bit here, bit there, but coming in late, eating no regimentation whatsoever, no goals, nothing. And so I joined this gym, and the guy who owned it was a guy called Paco Muller, co-owned it, and he was a Spanish lightweight champion. It was like, wow, unbelievable. And from that point on, I actually then started going to the gym without fail. I used to travel from the resort where I used to work at via bus, and the journey to there would be between an hour and a half just to get to the gym. But I knew then that that's what it meant to me, you know, and I really enjoyed it. And living in Spain at the time was nice because, you know, the temperature was nice all year round. You know, it was going back a few years. We're talking 22 years ago nearly now. But yeah, that's when it actually started for me. You know, I didn't know at the time, again, you know, that I was going to go and pursue and become a bodybuilder and compete 2 years later. I didn't honestly know that. You know, that was like I say, that was the April 1991, and so the environment that I was in, I suppose I took to like a duck to water and never looked back.
So how old were you when you started getting serious?
When I got serious, well, that was in 91. I was born September 1968. So what's that? 22. 22, yeah. I was 22. Even I messed around with the weights when I was in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force in 1987, and I always used to train and do other sports. Yeah. And so from 1987 to like August 89, I trained on and off, and I was always messing around. So I had a bit of a foundation. Yeah. But when I left the Air Force to when I went to Spain from back end of 89 to 1991, I was pissing about. I was just lost. I was just a normal average person, and I hated it. Yeah. Yeah.
So you came back to the UK, and fairly quickly you started competing in the EFBB. Your first 4 shows, you won them all. And you won the EFBB Intermediates under 80 in the first year. And the overall, yeah. And the overall. And the Weed and New Star of the Year award. Indeed. I remember it well. 1993, yes. What was that like for you? Do you think that was pretty much the most ideal start to bodybuilding a bodybuilder could have had? Yeah, I mean, what, to win all the shows? Yeah, I mean, if you ask James Flex Lewis, he's probably got the best record as an amateur, apart from Dorian. And so the first year I entered, I set my stall out quite high. I was under no illusions. I saw the lads that in the flesh, like your Ian Atkinsons, your Gary Shelmadines and all that, and I understood what condition was about. I looked at the magazines, and so straight away it wasn't a case of I just want to compete and get up there. I wanted to make a mark. I'm coming, and you know, I've never been sort of like shy, retiring, and yeah, I was a bit cocky in that, to say the least, you know. But that was being a young buck. Do you think you need that to be a bodybuilder? I think you've got to. There's being cocky, and there's being sure of yourself, and it's how you manage that and how you portray that is more important. At the time, I suppose I was a bit too cocksure, but fuck it, that's how it was, and it didn't do me any harm. But if I could go back, you know, and I've actually seen it in other people who've gone, just let me give you a piece of advice. So I don't regret the way I was. In fact, I'm glad, because it's been a learning curve for me, which will help me to help others who may find themselves in a similar position. Yeah. I guess some people, though, if they have success early doors, they start coasting. But obviously, you had the mentality not to do that. Yeah, well, look, I mean, I knew what I wanted, and you know, like I say, I know what I'm about. My mindset, you know, when my mind's set to do something, it's done. Yeah. It's not a case of will it or won't it. Yeah. You don't make sure you do. Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's for me. You know, that's what bodybuilding's always been about. Yeah. Setting yourself a consistent challenge. Yeah. Always wanting to better yourself. Always wanting to improve. Yeah. So take us through what happened when you came back to the UK. Believe you ended up working with CMP at the time. You met Kerry when I came back from Spain. Yeah. No, I didn't. No. When I came back from Spain, I actually went back to doing a similar job that I was doing. Right, but okay. I was making sure that my food was all in place. I was training, and so I never neglected that. Yeah. And then after a while, and then I started going to the gym, and then I'd saved up enough money, and unfortunately for me at the time, I went, I'm not going to work. So I just was training and eating, and I was spending all my money. You know what I mean? And when I look back, I think, you know, it's a bit silly. Yeah. You know, you can have a good job, you can work, you can do whatever, and fit things in. Yeah. You know, and people got to understand that. But at the time, I thought, well, I can do what, you know, as I please, and I'll do that. And then I competed, and then won the first shows. And then after that, you know, I found myself. Then I got into a few jobs. It was a bailiff, and I'd done 1 or 2 numbers like that. I actually joined CMP back in 1997. It was actually chemical warfare at the time. Yeah. Yeah. So, can I ask you about something that I read on your website? In 1997, yeah, it said that 6 weeks out, yeah, you were involved in a barroom brawl. Yep. And you were glassed and whatnot. You were bottled. Sorry. Yeah. How did you come to be in a nightclub at 6 weeks out from the show? I was doing the doors. Okay.
So what it was is a very poignant night because the reason why I remember it so vividly as well is because it was the night Diana got killed, Princess Diana got killed. So it was quite ironic. I mean, we were on the door and it literally kicked off. I mean, big time. There must have been, I don't know, I can't remember. There was like 10, 15 guys. Can't remember exactly. And I jumped right in the middle of them. So as I'm manhandling 2 or 3, they come behind me with like, there was a table full of bottles of Budweiser. And I mean, full bottles. So I must have took about 4 or 5 bottles over the head within the first, I don't know. As soon as I turned round, bang, 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 bang. And then it was just all over the show. We were fighting, everything, and then I felt the crunches, broken bottles just going in the back of my head, the top of my head. Luckily, it was all at the back. You know, I've got a big scar. I had a scar that had to be stitched on the inside and the outside and on the top of the head. I broke my hand, but I was very fortunate it wasn't my face. Looking back, I mean, I lost a lot of blood. I mean, a hell of a lot of blood, you know, and it was quite funny because after they all got out, we got them out of the place, I remember sitting there and I didn't realise how big the hole in the head was. It was quite big. And the blood was splurting out and I couldn't see this. And at the time I turned out to the girl and said, listen, my food's on the floor, get me food, I need to eat, it's time to eat. So I'm there, in a right state, but not realising how bad I was. And I'm sat there eating my food, and because it was actually about 5 weeks out. And when I look back, I really should have pulled the plug on that preparation because, you know, I didn't fully recover. And when I did the light heavies, I didn't place I didn't make the cut. It was the worst showing I had. So not to make any excuses, but you know, it was just one of them unfortunate events. But I was lucky that, you know, it wasn't my neck or my face or anything like that.
You came in under 90 rather than under 80, right? For that show.
Yeah, I was in the under 90s.
Yeah. Did you come in heavier because you were off because of the bar?
No,
thing,
I came in heavier with the intention to move up because I'd already won the middleweights in 1995. Yeah. So in 1997 I wanted to step up the game and come up. But to be honest with you, I'm looking at I don't think I made the enough improvements even without the injury to really have been in the fray with the guys at the time. As daft as it sounds, so it was just a learning curve really.
Is it a bad idea for a bodybuilder to be a bouncer if he's trying to do something with the sport in retrospect?
Yeah, I think over the years it's been one of the most common things that guys who are big and compete, you know, generally are attached to. But if you can avoid being on the door, I think, you know, it's a given. You don't do the door unless you feel you have to financially. It wasn't for persona. It wasn't for getting the women or anything like that. It was just a means to an end for financial sort of like, you know, gain, if you get my meaning. So nothing other than that. If someone had come along and said, listen, you know, I'll sponsor you, there's money, I wouldn't have been on the door. You know what I mean? I can think of better things to do with my time.
Yeah.
But yeah.